So the agenda for today, like I said, we're going to talk very quickly about who Prosoft is. Just a couple of minutes. I think most of you know who we are. And then we're going to look at the industry trends, the challenges in water and wastewater, and then addressing those challenges and where remote connectivity comes in. We're going to finish with a quick summary, and then there should be time for Q&A if I don't keep talking. All right. So who we are. So for those of you who don't know, Prosoft has been around for over 30 years. We were originally founded in 1988, and we're headquartered in California. And ever since we were founded, our focus has been on industrial communication solutions, really about taking your data, transporting that data to where you want it safely and securely. And that's been our mode of operations over the last 30 plus years. We support over 100 different protocol combinations, different types of communications, wired and wireless, and of course, security. And you're going to hear that again and again. Prosoft is part of the Belden group of companies. We were acquired around 2014. Belden has got its own storied history, has been around for over 120 years. One of the first customers being Thomas Alva Edison. So again, Belden has got that reputation and that history within this industry. I think almost everybody in water wastewater knows who Belden is. Pretty much most of the cables come from them and so forth. We've got offices globally to do the follow the sun approach in terms of technical support, something that we're very well known for. Prosoft itself has got over 100 employees, and Belden is pretty close to 8,000 employees around the globe. Okay, so if you look at what Prosoft's expertise in water and wastewater is, it's quite a few. It is a very important market for us. It is in the top two, with the other one being oil and gas. And we know that this is critical infrastructure, right? And it's fundamental to any economic development and societal progression. So, and with that, the water and wastewater industry has seen some pretty significant quantum changes, all of it, which obviously makes it better. Where Prosoft comes in is we help improve productivity through data reliability and secure connectivity. So whether it's like modernizing your equipment, whether it's connecting disparate systems, in-plant or remote connectivity, which we're going to be talking about, or ensuring that there's no holes in your OT data. We can help with all of these different things, bringing that overall expertise, again, fundamentally allowing you to ensure that you've got the right data so you can make the right decisions. So let's look at the big picture initially, and we're going to look at two main things of trends in the industry and then the challenges facing the water wastewater industry. So like I said earlier, delivering clean water or treating effluent is a very complex process. It's very highly regulated and it's continuous. It's the key for societal development, right? You look at the major cities today, they would not be where they were if they did not have this basic infrastructure. The industry is facing some major challenges with everything from increased security, compliance, through to reduced funding. I think all of you can relate to that. And so we're going to cover all of that in detail later on in this presentation and look at how we can address some of those challenges. And we're not going to be looking at addressing each challenge in detail. Obviously, the time does not allow us to do that. But what we will be looking at, again, is a big picture where I think that reliable and secure connectivity and ensuring that your data is reliable should help solve a lot of these challenges. So if you look at where the industry, the challenges of where it is heading today, so if you look at based on the amount of money being spent in smart water technologies, or if you look at the continued growth of these mega cities, whether it's cities here in the US, I mean, a good example is Denver and Houston, and I look at where they were today, the city just never seems to end. So you've got this increased urbanization. All of this is going to result in several millions of new customers being connected to an already stressed water wastewater systems. So to deal with this load, the systems are moving towards a more connected enterprise. And what does this connected mean? To a certain part, this has been around for a while. But if you look at what Rockwell's definition of connected enterprise is, they say that it consists of industrial operations that are intelligent, optimized, and secure. Having this knowledge enables faster and better business decisions that can help increase productivity, improve quality, and help meet the demand. Now, another definition of a connected system is that it's a system that not only monitors, but connects them to all of the vital hubs within the business that's required to operate it efficiently, creating real-time abilities and enabling predictive analytics and deeper operational insights. This allows businesses to convert this information and intelligence into quantifiable action items. So if you think about both of those definitions, they're kind of very similar, with the end goal really being to increase efficiency and productivity. And the key to all of that is connectivity, which is what we're going to be focusing on. So these, I believe, are some of the top challenges facing the water and wastewater industry. Again, a lot of it is relatively well known, so I'm not going to go through each one in detail. But if you look at funding, I mean, it's a very complex topic. We know that utilities are continuously underfunded. With utilities not having the flexibility to raise rates, to charge for water accordingly, especially here in the United States. So it is something that's a continuous stress point, but something that also has to be dealt with. And how you can deal with that is to ensuring that the assets that you've got today, you can maximize the life of those assets. You can ensure that you're getting the right data back. So when you do have to make changes, or you've got to make the funding, you can do it in the right spots and ensure that operational efficiency and productivity. Technology, we know that adoption of newer technologies can deliver benefits, but these are being adopted slowly. And again, a lot of it is due to lack of funding, lack of training within the industry. You still have specs that are being written with old systems. Again, nothing wrong with the older systems, but the way the technologies are moving, you've got a lot of the limitations, especially around security and data reliability. It needs to be addressed to ensure that you can maintain this productivity within water wastewater. Sustainability, I mean, this is a pretty big challenge. We know it's a limited resource, right? There is only this much amount of fresh water. We are very, very lucky in this country that we've got approximately 20% of the world's freshwater resources right here in the US. And extremely lucky with that. But with ever-increasing populations and then unrealistic planning, where you've got a golf course being built in the desert, this is something that the water and the wastewater industry is facing as a challenge, and addressing some of those challenges. We've got to be reasonable about it. We've got to make sure that we're doing the right thing, but it is something that is a challenge for this industry. Security. I mean, again, we're going to be talking about this as a recurring theme throughout this presentation, something that has changed from just putting up signs, and it's an ongoing fight. We just have to look at the incidents over the last few years. The water wastewater industry is seen as a soft target. It is now classed as critical infrastructure, so you've got a more renewed focus, and there are solutions that can help you with that to ensure that your system stays secure and safe as well. Compliance, again, this is something that is continuous. You've got new hazards that are coming up that need to be addressed all the time. You've got new regulatory reports. You've got new agencies that need data differently and all of those different things. So this compliance is an ongoing challenge within the water wastewater industry. You've got environmental risks, whether it is climate change. You look at what's happening today. We had a drought 6 months ago, and today California is flooding. Both instances are not good. So how do you plan for that? How do you take this into account when you're planning new systems or ensuring current brownfield systems can cope with these pretty significant changes in weather patterns and other environmental risks? Fire is a risk as well. Increased urbanization. We spoke about this with these mega cities, where you've got more and more of the population moving into a smaller geographical area. There's demographic shift that's placing stress on resources, which of course, and then finally you've got aging infrastructure as well. So in order to address these challenges, like I said, I'm not addressing each one of the challenges individually and how to solve them. I'm taking a very broad view on how to address these challenges. And for me, the two main things are connectivity, and the second one is data integrity. Now, with connectivity, going back to what Claire said at the start of this presentation, we said that telemetry is not something that's new. It's been around for a long time. If you look at that image on the left-hand side, I'm sure a lot of you would recognize that that's an image from the Lord of the Rings. Connectivity is important back then in Middle-earth. It's important now. We've just progressed much more than, say, just lighting fires on top of trees to communicate our messages across. But it is something that's been around, since the dawn of Earth. We've just gotten better and more efficient at how we can communicate and ensuring that we have the right data to make sure that we make the right business decisions, make sure that the systems are running correctly and securely. And just having connectivity is not important. You got to ensure that the data that you're getting back, that the data that you're using to make a lot of those decisions, whether it's on predictive maintenance, whether it is on funding, security, that you've got the right data, that it's reliable, that it's coming from the right source. So I think addressing these two issues at a foundational level, basic level, will help you address a lot of the challenges in the water wastewater industry. So let's focus on connectivity. Now, there are three main types of connectivity. So the first one is what I call as the flow connectivity, right? So here you've got disparate protocols, especially if you look at built over 30, 40 years, systems have changed, protocols have changed. You've got more efficient protocols now. Back in the old days, everything was proprietary, did their own things, but those systems are still working. So you still need a way to connect those different disparate systems. You need a way to bring all of that data back into some kind of a central location so you can analyze that. So this is what I'm calling as a flow connectivity on the plant floor, or on the treatment plant, old pump stations, whatever it is, where you've got all of these different types of devices, protocols that all need to be interconnected. The next type of connectivity is what I'm calling as in-plant connectivity. So here you're talking, within treatment plants, which are spread over a very large area, and they have multiple sections within a plant. For example, in a wastewater treatment plant, there is screening and sedimentation, aerators and clarifiers and so forth. And each one of these processes, they all have their own automation systems, but they need to share data and they need to be able to send data to a central location. So here you've got, how do you connect these different processes? Kind of wireless comes into play, especially if you're taking a brownfield treatment plant and you're adding, let's say, a new process or updating a particular, let's say you're adding ozone, for example, to the wastewater treatment plant. Trying to do wired connectivity back to the top end can be logically impossible. Can be very, very expensive. So this is where things like wireless connectivity comes in. So obviously Prosoft has got its own wireless portfolio, AGBN, and these are very much designed for industrial environments, but more importantly, they're designed to be optimized like Rockwell systems and architectures, with things like add-on profiles and access to diagnostic information that can be displayed in SCADA systems. And then the third and the most important type of connectivity is remote connectivity. So this is where the telemetry part comes in. I'll be spending a little bit more time on this over the next couple of slides. To me, this is the guts of a water wastewater system, because again, your assets are not in a closed loop. They're not in a small area. They're geographically dispersed. So having that ability to connect to all of these different types of assets safely and securely and bringing back all of that data is absolutely fundamental to ensuring that a water wastewater system is operating efficiently and correctly. If you look at remote connectivity itself, I mean, like I said, I've spent 20 plus years in the industry, and I've sort of seen everything from trunk mobile radio to UHF to VHF to lease lines. There's a lot of different technologies, remote access technologies or remote connectivity technologies, and they've all had their play. But I think moving forward, I think cellular is the future. And this is kind of a high level comparison as to why I believe cellular is the future. To me, one of the biggest reasons is because cellular coverage is truly ubiquitous today, to the point where it is the second most abundant thing that's available on air or on Earth, other than the air we breathe. And this ubiquitousness has really only been achieved over the last 10, 12 years or so. There has been an explosive growth in cellular technologies. We went at the start of the century, we were still playing with 1G. We are now 5G, very firmly into 5G, the fifth generation, and we're already talking about sixth generation. So this, excuse me, this quantum leap, this explosion in not only the adoption, but also the implementation of cellular technology is really changing how you connect to remote assets and how we as a society function for everything, whether it is mobile access, for your banking, for videos. You look at today train control systems, you look at the amount of passenger Wi-Fi, the bandwidth that has to be available. Cellular is really leading the charge, and all of that is not possible if you don't have ubiquitous coverage, and that has been achieved. I mean, you can go to places in Africa today where they may not have running water, they may not have a connected, natural gas system, but they will have very reliable cellular connectivity that has actually helped them improve their quality of life. The one thing that people always talk about, especially around, there's a lot of misconceptions around reliability. I do know that, your cell phones, for example, do drop coverage and all of that. There is a difference between using a handheld cellular cell phone versus having an industrial device that's fixed, mobile, sitting, using an industrial antenna. So I would I would request that you look at the coverage, look at what the signal strengths are, and so forth before you kind of make that decision. But it is getting significantly more reliable, day by day, basically. And when looking at remote connectivity solutions, especially cellular, you've got to make sure that it's agnostic, that they are a more complete solutions provider, where they can provide things like data plans, hardware and device management, and all of that. So you can then focus on the most important thing to you, right? So communications is required for you to ensure that you can deliver water, and that when somebody flushes a toilet, it works correctly, which means your wastewater system has to be operating. Everything else that you need is a tool. In order for you to operate that, to focus on that service, you've got to make sure that you're working with the right partners, which is where Rexel and Prosoft and Rockwell, we can all come in to provide you that system that's dependable, reliable, and secure. Talking about remote connectivity, and this is one of my 3 cheat slides for this presentation. One solution, or what I believe is a solution of the future to connect all of your remote sites, is what we're calling as a persistent data network, or PDN. It's basically a virtual private network designed to connect remote assets, remote sites anywhere in the world. The advantage with PDN, so this is Prosoft system, it will work with any cell carrier globally. You can mix and match. It's a pretty significant differentiator because now you take a large geographical area where one carrier does not provide coverage to the entire region. You can now mix and match and have a single system where all of the sites are coming back to a single top end. That has not been possible till now. When you go with carrier-based cellular systems, you're tied to that carrier. With Belden, with PDN, we don't care. You can have a bunch of sites in AT&T, you can have a bunch of sites in T-Mobile, you can have a bunch of sites in Verizon, and they will all be able to talk to a common top end that's, let's say, has got a wide Ethernet point. It's a pretty significant, like I said, differentiator. So what enables the PDN, the persistent data network, is Belden Horizon. Belden Horizon gives you this ability to focus on sort of this simple approach, which is very secure, where we're doing all of the background work, right? And all you have to do is fundamentally turn it on, really. And connecting or placing sites on this PDN network is super simple. It only will take you literally a minute per site. You're going to be spending more time installing the system, putting the antenna up, than actually connecting the site to this PDN network. You look at the key differentiators, like I said, it's always connected, it's always on. The ease of use, because you can use it with any global carrier. There's absolutely zero software to maintain, and we do all of the maintenance for you. From a security perspective, very secure. We're going to be talking a little bit more in detail about security further down this presentation, but at a very high level, we only support outbound connections. Basically, what that means is that these sites will never, ever initiate a connection to connect. They will respond to a valid incoming connection, allowing connection between SCADA and the remote site, but the remote site will never initiate a connection, for example. An added advantage of PDN is remote access. Imagine the ability of when you finish your shift on a Friday, go home and you've turned on the barbecue, you get a call saying that something is wrong at a remote pumping station. The last thing you want to do is to drive through traffic again for a couple of hours and realize the only thing that needed to be done was to do a reset, for example. Imagine having the ability and the power to connect to that site remotely and securely, having a look as to what's happening, and then being able to diagnose. Now, it does not completely warrant that you have to go to site. You may have to, but at least with this remote access, you have the ability to do sort of this first-hand analysis and then be better prepared when you get out to the remote site to ensure that you can resolve that issue quickly. And then, of course, we support data logging as well. So this is where there will be no holes in your OT data. There's a couple of different ways we can do this. One's using DNP3, which I'm going to be talking about, and others just using very simple data logging, and then let's say using something like Rexel Reporter to capture and to visualize all of that data. Rexel Reporter is through a company called Cytec, which is also an Encompass partner. So again, we work very well in this connected architecture, this connected enterprise solution within the Rockwell architectures. This is the second of my cheat slides, so I've got one more which is further down. But if you look at our remote access portfolio, it's quite simple and it's intended to be that way. We've got a wired gateway and a wireless gateway. Our gateways are fully certified, they're industrially hardened to work in the harshest of environments. So class 1 Div 2 approval, up to 70 degrees. The wired gateways, where if you've got a internet connection, you can use that. And then wireless is your 4G LTE gateway that can work on any network, and they are global. One of the big advantages of the Prosoft gateway solutions is that they're fully certified. We've got carrier certifications, whether it's with Verizon or AT&T. And what that basically means is that when these devices connect to the network, they know about us, They know about these devices, and they will then, when they're doing their own routine security things, right? Like they continuously look at their networks to see if there's any unauthorized devices on their network, and they'll kick them out. They will recognize that Prosoft devices are valid, that they've been certified to operate on the network, and therefore there's no issues with them. Okay, so if we look at what all of this connectivity can do for you, when you have that better connectivity, when you have that reliable connectivity, it basically means you've got increased productivity. And with increased productivity, to achieve that, you'll need real-time access to information, which better connectivity can give you that. Once you've got access to that real-time information, you can make better business decisions. Whether it is changing the way the amount of time you have to pull, what data you're getting, which site needs to be put down for maintenance, all of those different things. It's only if you've got access to that real-time information you can make those type of decisions. This connectivity also helps to provide sort of a seamless and an integrated flow between IT and OT systems. And I think, again, gone are the days where the IT and OT was completely separate. IT-OT convergence is real. It's happening. There are significant benefits to that, especially around security. There's a demand to ensure all of that. Once you have that connectivity, IT can basically then use that to monitor your systems to ensure that they're secure and so forth. And then finally, when you've got better connectivity, it can lead to better predictive maintenance. Again, the solution is in the word, it's predictive. Well, if you're going to do predictive maintenance, you got to make sure that you want the right data. To get the right data, you got to make sure that you've got that reliable connectivity. And so there's all of this interlinked to each other. And once you're able to do predictive maintenance, you can increase productivity, which means you can reduce your downtime, when pumps are running, when they fail, how quickly can you get it up and running and things like that, because you've already, planned for the service and so forth and things. And then also ensuring that you can extend the life of the assets by operating these assets, with equal runtime and things like that and so forth. We looked at connectivity, so far. The next challenge, to address all of the challenges we looked at earlier on, the next part we're looking at is data integrity. Now, with data integrity, there's really data reliability and integrity. And then data integrity is the accuracy and validity of the stored data over its entire life cycle. So that's like, once an event occurs, well, was it captured correctly? Was it stored correctly? Then when you received it, was it processed? So that entire process is ensuring that it is right, and that data is integral. Excuse me. The reliability is the overall consistency of the measure of that data that you're looking at. There are some real issues with access to reliable data. According to a report available on ASDWA, which stands for the Association of State Drinking Water Administrators, they found that in 2014, so going back a few years, 100% of the surface water treatment plants in the Northwest region of Washington State had data reliability issues. And there's another report, and this one was from the EPA, where they said that approximately 19 to 25% of public water system data was questionable. And both of these reports came kind of to the same conclusion. They said that there were two primary reasons for that. One was a lack of training, how this data is recorded and how this data is handled, and then the right equipment and use to ensure that the data being collected is reliable and it's correct, right? So equipment, by this I mean like devices, sensors, having the right controllers and all of that. So there is some real issue with data reliability and integrity, and if this can be addressed, then a lot of the challenges we spoke about earlier on can be addressed as well, can be resolved. And the impact of this unreliable data is pretty significant. You can have issues with compliance and regulatory reporting. It's no longer acceptable to say that I lost communications to the site and therefore I don't have data when a pump station overflowed. The EPA is not going to let you get off that easily. So that's a pretty significant impact, of not having that data when there was an incident. So you've got to make sure that you have that reliable data. There's an impact on operational efficiency. That's fairly obvious. There's impact on predictive and standard maintenance. If you've got an unreliable data, you could be servicing a pump too quickly or too late if the data is not right. For example, if you're not, even something simple as trying to monitor the pump run hours and the number of times it started, if you're not doing that reliably and you're not doing that accurately, that can have impact on the pump service. Certainly security, that's a pretty significant, a pretty big impact when you have unreliable data. And then the last one is also on funding, right? So you may think based on the data that you have that you don't need money, or you're asking for vastly more than what's required, or you're redirecting resources to fix the wrong asset or the wrong system because of this unreliable data. So some pretty significant impacts if you don't have the right data, which obviously is going to impact the operation of the water wastewater system. And to me, one of the ways that you can improve your data integrity is by using DNP3 protocol. The DNP3 protocol was invented here in North America in the late 80s. DNP stands for Distributed Network Protocol, and the 3 is Level 3 compliance. It was fundamentally and originally developed for utilities, where it offers a lot of advantages focused around data integrity. Things like, for example, when you get a status, did it really come from the right module? Was it on? But sort of one of the more important things about DNP3 protocol, especially for water wastewater, is that timestamping is done at the source, not when the data comes into the master. That's a significant change and a significant advantage, because think about it, if a pump went on or a pump went off, you want to know exactly when that happened, not the next time you pull the site, right? Which could be 30 minutes later and say, oh, the pump started, but it really started 30 minutes ago. What happened in that time? What else did happen? So this ability to timestamp at the source is very, very important and really helps with improving the reliability and the quality of service for the water wastewater system. Now, the significant advantage that DNP3 offers is data classification. Today, we know data is power, and a lot of these devices have got more and more data. I mean, you take a pump today, it's got hundreds and thousands of parameters. 10 years ago, that was not the case. You may have 10 variables coming out. But today, a pump, a smart pump, or a drive can offer hundreds and hundreds of diagnostic variables. If you try to bring back all of that data all the time, your system will become very inefficient very, very quickly. It'll probably come down to a halt, and then you're going to be ending up losing on the most critical points of the data. So this is where this data classification comes in, because you can go and then say, okay, this set of variables is absolutely critical, and I want this sent to me at a higher rate than, let's say, something as standard operational data that I need to know, but I don't need to know every second. I don't need to know every 10 seconds. So to give you an idea, when a pump goes faulty, you want to know about that straight away. But if a pump starts and stops, and you've set the routine to do that, it's still important for you to know that the pump started and stopped, but you don't need to know about it straight away. And especially when you've got 100 different remote sites that you're dealing with, when there's a pump fault, you want to know about it straight away versus having to wait for 15 minutes by the time the poll routine goes along. That's what unsolicited reporting is all about, the ability for the remote site to send the data on the occurrence of an event. This protocol is also very secure, does support secure authentication. So not only have you got security over the actual communications media, right, when you're using cellular or wireless, you've got encryption, but you've now got authentication within the protocol as well. And authentication and encryption are two different things. Encryption is where the data is garbled and then put together at the other end. Authentication is more about identifying that you are the right piece of data before acting on it. So, like for an example, when somebody comes and knocks on the door, and they say who you are, you want to verify that that person is, your uncle, your aunt, whatever it is, and then you let them in. But encryption on the other end is where the data is completely garbled, and then it has to be put back together. So you've got sort of these two levels. DNP3 does work on any communication network, whether it's cellular, whether it's wired, wireless, radio, it'll work on any network. So it really is a very, very useful and very important protocol. And sort of the key takeaway in all of this is, because of the timestamping of the source and because of the data classification, that there is no holes in your OT data. This particular module from Prosoft, which works is tightly integrated within the Rockwell architecture, can store like close to 1 million events in its memory. So you're never going to lose data there. Okay, security, a very, very complex topic. I mean, we can do multiple webinars on this topic by itself. It certainly is overarching. OT security can be very complex. Because of the number of systems, processes, you've got geographically dispersed assets and so forth. And it's suffice to say in today's world, whether we like it or not, we've gone away from simply putting up a sign saying drinking water supply, no trespassing. We've gone way past this. So again, I'm going to look at two broad strategies that you can look at a very high level when you're thinking about security for your water wastewater system. And those two strategies are defense in depth, and the other one is zero trust. Now, defense in depth is a very holistic approach that covers physical, technical, and administrative. So it's a multi-layered approach to security. You've got multiple levels. In this case, you've got 11 levels. We're going to talk a little bit more again about defense in depth with respect to the Belden Horizon and the PDN that I mentioned earlier on, and then trust as well. So zero trust is something that's new, but it is something that's gaining a lot of importance. There are presidential executive orders for critical infrastructure to take a zero trust approach. And if what it is, I mean, the best way to explain zero touch is to use an analogy, and the one that I like to use is when you go to the airport. When you go to the airport, you cannot get to the gate straight away. There are multiple levels in between, right? And through each level, you're allowed to do certain things. They verify your credentials and they say you can do X, and then you can proceed to the next level. So with each one of those levels, it's not like they don't trust you, but they're just verifying that you have the right credentials and you're doing the right thing, and then you get to the next level. That's fundamentally what zero trust is all about. It's more about saying you're denying access to everything as a base level, and then you say, okay, when you want access to level 1, do you have the right credentials? And then say, okay, yes, we'll give you access to level 1. You can do certain things. Okay, you're good there. You want to go to the next level, then you got to do these things and so forth. That's basically what zero trust is about. Okay, so we're sort of nearing the end, and I wanted to make sure that I've got a few minutes left for question time. This is my last cheat slide. So your partner through your smart water journey, as I mentioned at the very start, Prosoft has got some pretty significant water wastewater expertise. It's been our top 2 markets for us, certainly over the last 30 plus years, where our solutions will help you digitize assets, connect disparate systems, help you capture data with no holes, and then simplify networking between remote sites to help water wastewater utilities meet all of the challenges and requirements that we spoke about earlier on. And the advantage, between Rexel and Prosoft as a Rockwell and Compass partner is that our solutions are designed to integrate very cleanly and sort of with very minimal effort within the Rockwell Connected Enterprise, whether you're talking about things like add-on instructions, direct-to-tag technology, having access to diagnostic parameters within the controller so you can make the right control decisions. These architectures are very, very tightly integrated so you can reduce your overall engineering time and have that guarantee that these systems will all work together. I'm going to very quickly do another slide on security. Remember, I said it's one of the most important things. And this relates very much to Belden Horizon and PDN. The key I want to focus here really is on the two pull-out boxes on the right-hand side. The first one is with our solution. Remember, I spoke about the seamless flow between IT and OT. So our solution is designed such that IT can help you integrate the solution in with things like Active Directory, support for Active Directory or single sign-on. So using your existing corporate credentials to access the application. And then additionally, we've also got things like token-based two-factor authentication, role-based user access. So even when you get in, you're guaranteed that you can only access certain sites and certain devices within those sites and so forth. And then also the last box, which talks about the reliability of the solution. This is completely cloud native. What that allows us to do is to really increase the dependability, the reliability, and the security using the latest technologies, whether it is a containerized architecture to make sure that if there is a failure, there is always another container to take its place. And then also having built-in redundancy for that reliability and the dependability that you will have. Okay. All right. So this is pretty much the last slide before I open it up for question time. So the key takeaways here is that connectivity and data integrity can help address many of the challenges faced by water wastewater authorities. We looked at all of those challenges earlier on, whether it's funding, security, sustainability. Really, the basis to address all of those is you got to make sure that you have reliable connectivity to all of your assets, whether they're pump stations, the valves, dredges, treatment plants, whatever it is, and then ensuring that the data from all of these different locations is the right data, is the correct data that can then help you address those challenges. You're going to need a modern and a reliable communications network that is simple to use, it is secure, and you want to make sure that it's managed, right? Because the primary objective for you is to deliver on your service, which is either the fresh water or treating effluent. Therefore, you don't want to be bogged down in managing a communications network when you should really be focusing on delivering that service. So you want to work with a partner that can provide you that service that is, again, that's open, that you're not tied to it, that even if you use the hardware, for example, you can go somewhere else when you don't, when you're not happy with the service and things. But you want to make sure that it's a managed service so you can then do what you need to do. You've got to make sure that you meet regulatory reporting and compliance. And to do that, you've got to make sure you have the right data. Ensuring that there's no holes in your data is really the first step where DNP3 can come in. And then security, overarching, very important. You've got to think about it for existing systems, new systems. And sort of the two key strategies to consider there is defense in depth and zero trust. Excellent. With that, I am going to open this up for question time, if you've got any questions.
I didn't see any that I missed in the chat sessions. Actually, I do have one from Brian Pierce. Similar to DNP3, MQTT protocol is a heavy use in my market. Do you have any installations based around the MQTT protocol?
We do. So today, as we continue to increase the availability of MQTT in some of our other products, Today, they are available through our LDM, which is basically an in-chassis Rockwell platform on the control logics and the compact logics. And the LDM module allows you to interface to any MQTT broker out there. You are right. MQTT is another protocol that's gaining prominence, mainly because it is super message efficient. It's being adopted a lot in the oil and gas industry for pipeline communications, but it's got some of the features of DNP3, especially the push-pull technology, and then the ability to really send off the data. Where I think a couple of the challenges come into MQTTs around security, and then certainly around time stamping at the source, which DNP3 addresses.
Feel free to come off mute, guys, at this point. Okay, he says he's good. And then James asks, what's the difference between IT and OT? So when we start talking about IT, we're really talking about the information technology, which is traditionally the difference of where the plant stops and it becomes more of a Microsoft Office network above the plant floor. And OT is just what they call operational technology. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's a big divide in water, wastewater. In most companies, the difference between IT and OT is quite a large gap. James, do you want to come off and ask any more questions on that?
Oh, that's what I wanted to know. I don't really get heavily involved in this. I just know it's important to know because This is part of our projects that we have. There's always a connectivity portion to it. And I just, I just never heard of OT, IT. To me, IT is information technology, but I don't think that's what it stood for here. So I wanted to get some clarification. And then I had an earlier one that was FHSS, I believe.
Yeah, frequency hopping spectrum. So
that's what that is.
Yeah, 900 megahertz, the free spectrum. My challenge with that is when it came out was great. Everybody jumped on it.
Yeah.
The issue today, it's become unreliable because everything from garage door openers to other things is on that band. So it's not really very reliable for telemetry applications, and it's certainly not very secure.
Excellent. And with that, go ahead.
So
Jim,
on yours, what are your frequencies running on?
So the free band has to be the 900 megahertz range. You've got licensed frequencies, and they can also be in the 900 range. You've also got the 450, which is the low frequency. There's not a lot of them around, and there's really no band available today on the licensed band. But if you're talking spread spectrum, that's on the 900 to 928, if I remember correctly. That's the frequency range that those devices tend to operate on.
I see. Thank you.
Right. A couple more questions came in. Is the Belden Horizon used IoT cellular connection?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again, Claire?
And you may have to come off, Thane, but it says, is the Belden Horizon used IoT cellular connection?
Is it like a IoT technology you use the IoT to connect to all the network carrier instead of one specific cellular carrier? Is it that the way how it's? I didn't see the big picture how your the Horizon make a connection.
That's correct. Yes, you're spot on. Let me bring up that slide. So up here, yes. So Belden Horizon. I mean, it's basically a VPN that we maintain. So Belden Prosoft maintains this network, and the remote sites use the cellular gateways to connect into through this. So it is a virtual private network, but it's something that is generated and maintained by Prosoft.
In this case, does IoT stand for Internet of Things?
Yes, it does.
All right, thank you.
Does that answer your question then?
Yeah, so that means it might have a monthly subscription and those to use it, right?
Correct. correct?
That's correct. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I know that's a big thing in the water wastewater industry with subscriptions. I think there's a wider recognition, a wider adoption of it. We've certainly had quite a number of water authorities adopt it just within the last sort of 2 years. I think what's important to keep in mind with these subscriptions is that they are providing a continuous service. And you as a customer really is the king in this case, because when you don't like the service, you can always go somewhere else. But what they're bound to offer with subscriptions, one of the things that you should be looking for is security. And with security in particular, I believe security has to be continuous, because when you look at a bad actor or a threat, they're not going to try once and stop. They're going to keep trying and keep trying, which means the systems that you use has to be active and on all the time, proactively, that looking to make sure that it can look at these threats, detect them, and then diffuse them before it becomes an issue. It's one of the big advantages of subscription services where they can offer this continuous security. But that's something that you need to make sure that you discuss with the solution provider, and something that is part of that. It certainly is with Belden Horizon and PDM.
Right, and then I think Michael McCormack was just adding some to the comment. It's IT policies are often too restrictive and problematic for an industrial environment that doesn't change hardware every 3 years. OT, however, is not IoT. Yeah, it's a very valid point, the difference between OT and the clarity of IoT that I think we've now answered. And you're right, the way that IT sees the network and security compared to OT is almost polar opposite. So we're happy at another date. If anyone has any more questions on this or would like to speak to me further on any of the security aspects of it, I'm going to go ahead right now and put my information in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me. And again, we are a Rexel distributor, as you all know, but that doesn't mean that we only work with Rexel. Prosoft is agnostic when it comes to telemetry. We can fit on any others PLCs, most other PLCs out there or devices. Our goal is to help provide you with a complete solution. Vishal, anything else you would like to add? Otherwise, I think we will close.
No, I am good. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it. And yes, Les said, feel free to reach out if you've got any questions.